You already knew you shouldn't say yes. You said yes anyway, and the moment the money left your account, you felt it. That specific, hollow feeling of having betrayed yourself without anyone forcing you to. Here's what almost no one will tell you. It isn't a willpower problem. It isn't a financial literacy problem. It's a psychological trap built directly into the way family relationships are structured. And once you understand how it works, you will never look at that moment of saying yes the same way again. Let's start with what actually happens in your mind the second a family member asks to borrow money. There's a flash, a tiny internal no, and then almost immediately, something else takes over. Psychologists call this the guilt loop. The request triggers an automatic threat response, not to your finances, but to your self-image. Your brain asks a question it's been trained to ask since childhood. What kind of person says no to family? And because most of us were taught, implicitly or explicitly, that saying no to family means you are selfish, cold, or disloyal, that question isn't neutral, it's a verdict, and you'll do almost anything to avoid being found guilty. Here's something most people don't realize. Family obligation isn't a feeling, it's a system. From the time we're children, families, consciously or not, create invisible rule books. These rules define what you owe each other, what love looks like in action, and what it means to be a good son, daughter, sibling, or cousin. These rules aren't written down anywhere, but they are deeply, deeply encoded. And one of the most powerful rules in almost every family system is this. When someone in the family is struggling, you help, no questions asked. What that rule doesn't include, what it never includes, is a boundary on how much help, or what kind, or what it costs you. It just says, you help. And violating that rule, even once, can feel like tearing the entire fabric of the relationship.
There's a specific psychological term for what happens in families where individual boundaries become almost impossible to hold. It's called enmeshment. In an enmeshed family system, the emotional lives of each person are so deeply intertwined that one person's distress automatically becomes everyone's crisis. Your pain is my pain. Your problem is my problem. And crucially, your financial need is my responsibility. Enmeshment isn't always toxic. In fact, it often comes from real love. But it creates a dynamic where having a separate life, separate finances, separate priorities, starts to feel like abandonment, like you've decided their problems don't matter to you. And for someone who is raised inside that system, the idea of being seen as someone who abandoned their family is almost unbearable.
Now, here's where it gets even more interesting and more complicated. Most families don't just run on love. They run on a silent, invisible ledger of emotional debts. Think about it. Has a family member ever reminded you, directly or indirectly, of everything they've done for you? The sacrifices made, the times they were there, the help they gave when you needed it? That reminder isn't random. It's a withdrawal from the emotional debt account. The logic goes, I was there for you then, so you owe me now. And whether or not that's fair, it's extraordinarily powerful. Because when you're sitting there holding their request in your hands, you're not just calculating money. You're calculating loyalty, history, gratitude, and love, all at the same time. And money almost never wins that calculation. Let's talk about the actual moment of refusal, because it almost never feels like a financial decision. It feels like a threat. When you consider saying no to a family member asking for money, your nervous system can respond as if you are literally putting the relationship in danger. And for many people, that's not irrational at all, because in some family systems, it is dangerous. Saying no has real consequences. Cold shoulders, exclusion from family events, being talked about, being labeled the selfish one, the one who has money and won't help. The nervous system learned early on that rejection from the family group is one of the most painful experiences a human can have, and it will work very hard to prevent that. So when your brain says yes before your rational mind has even finished thinking, that's not weakness. That's a survival response doing exactly what it was trained to do. There's another psychological principle quietly doing damage here, and it borrows from behavioral economics. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. Normally, we talk about it with money. You keep investing in something bad because you've already invested so much. But it works with relationships too. When you've spent years building an identity as the reliable one, the generous one, the family member who comes through, saying no feels like it erases all of that. One refusal might cancel out a decade of yes. And your brain knows that. So it tells you, don't risk it. The cost of protecting what you've already built is just this one more yes. Except it's never the last yes. It never is. This is perhaps the deepest layer of all. For many people, being the helper in the family isn't just something they do, it's who they are. Their identity has been built, piece by piece, around being the one who shows up, who sacrifices, who carries others. And when your identity is on the line, not just your money, the refusal becomes almost inconceivable. Because refusing means becoming a different person, a stranger to the self you've spent your whole life being. Psychologists who study family roles talk about something called the assigned role, a function you take on inside the family system, often very early in life, that defines your place in the group. The fixer, the provider, the strong one. These roles are powerful and comforting, and they are also cages. And one of the most painful realizations a person can have is that the role they thought was chosen was actually assigned to them before they were old enough to choose anything. So what do you do with all of this? The first thing, and it sounds simple, but it is profoundly hard, is to separate the relationship from the transaction. Helping someone financially and loving someone are not the same thing. They can coexist, but one is not proof of the other. The second thing is to recognize that guilt is information, not instruction. Feeling guilty when you consider saying no doesn't mean you should say yes. It means the system is working exactly as it was designed to. Third, and this is the long work, is to examine the role you've been playing and ask whether you chose it. Real relationships can survive a no. Relationships that can't were never as solid as they appeared. And finally, you are allowed to make a financial decision based on your financial reality. That is not selfishness. That is self-respect. And the two have been confused for long enough. If this video helped you understand something you've been carrying for a long time, you're not alone in it. The psychology of family and money is one of the most layered, most avoided topics there is, because it asks us to look at love and loyalty in ways that are uncomfortable but necessary. If you want to go deeper on how our earliest relationships shape the financial decisions we make for the rest of our lives, subscribe. There's a lot more to explore.